Our first story tonight began nearly 2 years ago. The Animal Refuge League of Greater Portland got the call, as it so often does, that animals were being seized by the state and would be brought to the shelter for care.
That part of the story is all in a day's work for the Refuge League. 207's Peggy Kaiser is here to tell us what happens from there.
There we go. Well, Rob and Amanda, 3 Great Danes arrived at the shelter in Westbrook in a horse trailer on that cold January night. What quickly unfolded with these dogs would play out over the course of 2 years, complicated by a pandemic. Patsy Murphy has been there countless times when dogs were brought in from a seizure.
Receiving Great Danes on a cold, dark night where they have no leashes, they have no collar, they are not socialized, and they are huge. I remember looking into the horse trailer and seeing this one dog who had gotten loose, and his eyes were just so fearful. He was just staring back at us. He had no intention of getting off that horse trailer. Didn't want to be handled. He didn't want to be touched. In this case, we knew that they were a confiscation or a seizure, and there was no transfer of ownership, so they were now evidentiary matter.
The dogs were evidence in an alleged abuse case, which meant they'd be in the care of the Refuge League foster families until the case played out in court. As if that weren't enough, 2 of the Great Danes were pregnant. In a matter of days, 3 Great Danes became 11.
So now imagine we've got all of these Danes, and we're asking people for help. What I didn't know is that there was a pandemic looming, and that the rules of the game would change, and that our capacity to care for these animals would be stretched to the max. Had no idea, had no precursor, had no inkling.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Ellen Berube jumped at the chance to foster Bessie, one of the 8 pups.
So we had fostered, I think we were in the double digits before Bess came to us, and most of them were small, young puppies, smaller dogs, and we have a dog of our own. And Anne gave me a call and said, we have a Great Dane. And I said, I'll stop you right there. I said, when should I come in? And she said, well, no, I have to tell you about the details. It's not your typical week-long commitment. And I said, it's okay, I'll be right there. So I stretched the truth and told my boyfriend it would probably be a week or 2. And then we went and picked Bess up, and that was almost 2 years ago. So the rest is history.
10 families volunteered to foster the Danes.
Hey, come on, go get that ball. Look, Boopie, look.
Mary McCarthy and Lisa Littlefield had owned Great Danes in the past, but never fostered. They took home one of the pregnant females. 7 days later, that mama gave birth to 6 Great Dane puppies.
So you had a mom and 6 Great Dane babies. I just want to pause and think about that.
Oh, I know, but they were just, you just can't imagine. I wanted to keep every single one of them. Everyone, and so did Lisa.
To open your heart to almost 300 pounds of dogs, it takes a really special.
Well, we don't but we don't consider ourselves that. We're just normal people. We're the lucky ones. We're the lucky ones.
The case surrounding these dogs dragged on, bogged down in the courts by the pandemic. The Danes all settled into their foster homes and became family members. All the while, everyone wondered what the outcome would be. What would happen if after 2 years in their foster homes, these dogs ended up going back to their original owner?
So we started talking about resiliency, and we started talking about what do we do as an organization to help facilitate whatever the uncertainty, whatever the ambiguity is in this case. We worked really hard on that. And we looked to the dogs to teach us. I'll be honest with you. Man, they taught us resiliency.
Just a few weeks ago, the Danes finally had their day in court. Ellen Berube wanted a front row seat.
So I actually took the day off from work and drove to the court case. I couldn't help myself. They announced that she was giving up custody. So I tried not to cry. I was sitting there, holding my breath, but I was so thrilled.
I was like walking on air. I could not believe it. These are our babies. They're not going anywhere. They're staying with us.
And you waited almost 2 years.
Almost 2 years for it to happen.
What's ahead for these 2 girls?
The best life ever. Yeah.
What has Bessie brought to your family?
Oh, I don't want to get too emotional, but sorry. We can't really imagine life without her. She's imperfect, but she's ours, and we never thought it would end up this way, but I'm so glad it did. She'll be taken care of for the rest of her life.
Now, 10 of the Danes have been adopted by their foster families, and one of the pups, now full grown, who has some special needs, is still available for adoption. And there is one more happy ending in this story. Liam Hughes, who is the director of the Animal Welfare Program for Maine's Department of Agriculture, Conservation, and Forestry, is one of the folks on the front lines when animals are seized from these horrific conditions. He came to the Refuge League the day videographer Kurt Craddy and I were there to do our story. While he sees the animals at the outset, he rarely sees them in their new chapter of life. He came on this day to see those Danes he had pulled from a difficult situation nearly 2 years earlier.
Most of the time when we're seizing animals, these animals are broken. They have not had proper socialization, they do not have proper medical care. So that's the worst day for them. But usually the day after is normally their best day.
Now, Director Hughes got to see Eleanor, one of the female Danes he had seized, and her new moms, and he got to meet Ladybug and Bessie, and who are two of the pups from the litters. So it was really nice. I hadn't really thought about that he does the hard work and doesn't get to circle back around. And so there he was that day, and then I realized he hadn't seen them in nearly 2 years and seen how well they were doing and how happy and healthy they all were. It was really lovely.
Nice to get that follow-up for sure.
Yeah.
I just can't imagine spending 2 years thinking, am I going to lose this animal that is now part of my family?
And that was a real concern for each one of the foster families. They did all the care, they kept those animals, they hung in there all the while not knowing. So it was pretty amazing.
Incredible.
And it's an undertaking with a Great Dane, to state the obvious.
The full grown, they're between 120, 130 pounds, even more. So that was such a commitment, and they all had happy endings, which is how we like it.